3 minutes. Really hard. I had my son time me last night. Thank you. I'm a mom of 4 PUSD students. I'm a former special education teacher and a local attorney now here in Prescott. But most importantly, I'm a Republican. I'm one of you guys. And I have been one since I registered to vote when I was 18 years old. But Republicans are getting a bad reputation. We're getting a reputation for being against public education. And I don't think that's accurate. I'm not sure where it's coming from. But I know that I don't feel that way, and I'm a Republican. I know Noel Campbell and Karen Fan and Steve Pierce, they're all in support of this bond and the override, and they're in support of our public schools. Arizona has a statewide systemic education funding problem right now. We're making national headlines, headlines we don't want to be making. We are not attractive to teachers, we're not attractive to families that want to move here, and we're not attractive to businesses. We have a short-term solution. We realize it's short-term. It's the bond and the override. It's to support our schools here in Prescott, local money for our local schools. We are in a crisis point because the state has limited the funding in so many ways to our schools in Prescott, but in Arizona. In 2013, we had a bond and override that came before the voters, and it failed. It did not fail because of retirees. Don't listen to that. It's not true. Our retirees are amazing. They're supporting our schools and they're volunteering. It failed because of apathy with my generation and people younger than me. 18 to 49-year-olds didn't vote. That's the problem. I'm a conservative. I don't like taxes, but I've been out there telling people we need this one because we're going to see it work for us. First, it's not an increase in your tax rate. No increase. There is a 2004 bond that is sunsetting this year, and so our tax rate will remain the same, $34.07 for the average home in Prescott, Arizona. The bond is to fix buildings. Those are taxpayer assets. The opposition will say something about perhaps that the buildings are going to be for sale. Why should we fix them up? Yes, we're trying to sell Washington and Miller Valley, but as we all know, any homeowner, you can't sell a property that's dilapidated. You have to keep it in good condition in order to sell it. We've had district buildings for sale for years. They don't go quickly. The district office, for example, since 1998. And so we have to keep those in good condition because that building is still not sold. The other thing is, Arizona State has shorted PUSD $12 million in building renewal funds and $5.4 million in capital money promised to PUSD over the last 6 years. That's why we're in this situation. That's why we need the money now. We have nothing to do major projects. We have roofs that are leaking. It's not PUSD's mismanagement. It's our state's problem, but it's now our local problem, and here's our local solution. The override is for teacher salaries and teacher pay. It's an across-the-board 5% raise for all PUSD staff. 6% of that goes to administration, 58% goes to teachers, 36% is to support staff, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, school counselors, school nurses, those people. PUSD is losing quality teachers. 50% in the last 3 years have been turned over. Across the board, we are well below, $40,000 below for our superintendent, and that's just because he likes to live here. If we wanted to hire somebody else from out of state, we couldn't hire him for what he's making. So why should you support the PUSD bond and override? Because we all get something out of it. Whether you have kids in school or not, there's a link between strong public schools and your property values. There's a link between crime rate, lower crime rate, better schools. You want better physicians in Prescott, you need to attract them with better schools. We'll have a better workforce for those of us that are business owners that we can hire. We'll have better professionals, we'll have better neighbors, and we'll have a better Prescott. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. We have to make sure you don't get out of here without an application. No one gets out of this room without an application. So now please welcome Joe Pendergast. He is the president of CTC, Citizens Tax Committee.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a real dilemma here. we're all for our kids and their education, and we do want to support our kids and their education. And so the Prescott Unified School District is proposing a bond issue and an override for you to vote on in November. And you'll be getting your ballots probably this week and be able to mail them in. The proposed bond has a value of $15 million. And the best I can figure out, because there's confusion in the ballot measure and in the articles in the paper, it's going to run for less than 20 years. How did they come up with that $15 million figure? Well, they tried to float a $30 million bond 2 years ago, and it failed. So they looked and they said, well, we have a bond that's going out, it's the 2004 bond, and if we hold that tax measure, we can have a $15 million bond without changing the taxes. That's a good selling point. But they then had a $15 million bucket, and they figured, how can we fill that bucket? And they filled it with building renewals, computers, furniture, and a couple of buses. They say it's the same tax rate, but how do we know that? If you look at your tax bill, there's only one line, PUSD, and a tax rate. If you go down to the Phoenix area, for instance, Scottsdale Unified School District, they easily see what their tax rate is for the school, and the bonds are listed separately, so they can tell what's really happening. In any case, the Citizens Tax Committee met with the superintendent and their financial director and Christine for a couple of meetings, over 2 hours each meeting, in which we really investigated what was going on. Afterwards, we held our own meeting, and we wondered why the school buildings were not adequately maintained as time went on, rather than allowed to fall into continually deferred and neglected maintenance. You get a leak in that corner, you fix it. You don't wait and then get a leak in that corner and then this corner, and pretty soon the whole building is leaking. You fix it as you go along. Then we checked with Prescott Transportation, Steve Silverdale, you know him, and he said 250,000 miles on a bus, it's almost new. He runs them safely to over 1 million miles with proper maintenance. Why can't the school district do that? And the bus prices reflected in the bulletin here are exorbitant, according to Steve. And they limit their bids to just a couple of suppliers rather than going the whole field of where buses can be bought, according to Steve. There's also on the ballot measures suggesting the sale of 2 vacated school buildings. If these are sold, the district could finance most renovations of their remaining buildings without the bond. However, if the buildings are leased or rented, we understand, that income can be used in any way the district feels like it. Therefore, CTC recommends an aggressive sales program for the disposal of the building and opposes the $15 million bond issue. Regarding the override, it's being sold to us as salaries for the teachers. But if you read the override text, it doesn't mention salaries. It just says general maintenance and operations. You approve this, you're giving them a blank check to spend that money any way they see fit. Also consider the teacher and staff ratio. 300 teachers. You know what the staff is? 300. It's 1-to-1. And they all get the raises, not just the teachers. We're being sold on the teachers, but it's all of them. With this in mind, and the stress just being placed on the teachers more, the salaries for the teachers, CTC recommends a no vote on the override. In summary, CTC recommends no votes on the bond and the override and yes votes on the sale of the 2 buildings, and urges that sales will be made instead of leasing or renting. The district is not in the business of being a landlord, which in itself is a challenging job. Thank you for your attention.
Well, you heard both sides, so you just need to make sure that you vote. That's the most important thing.